Today on Technado, we've got a lot of security news to talk about, as well as a Bitcoin tragedy. We also have an interview with a Microsoft MVP. That's all coming up on the Technado, starting right now. Hello and welcome to Technado. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam, and joined today by Don Pizzette, because we're here in Don's office, and also a familiar face for those of you who have been loyal viewers and listeners, Cherokee Boost. Cherokee, how you doing?
As opposed to the traders.
Good.
Yeah, there's a lot of traders out there. For first-timers, we welcome you, though, as well. So, and we've got a great interview today. We've got another Microsoft MVP. Cherokee and I were talking about earlier. We're kind of the place now that all the Microsoft MVPs want to go and hang out. It's like Ignite and then here on Technado. So.
Yeah. That's it.
That's a rousing approval from Cherokee. But we do have a lot of news to get to and a pretty full show, so let's just jump right to it. So this is kind of a follow-up from something we talked about last week over on ZDNet. Security firm identifies the hacker behind the Collection 1 leak as Collections 2 through 5 become public. So wait, how many collections are there?
Apparently, we have no idea.
At least 5.
You would think if there was a collection, they would have collected everything together into one, but no, apparently it takes a few tries.
That much data.
It needs volumes.
Are they just discovering them incrementally, like each individual breach? Is that what's happening?
Well, so it's many different breaches. So when we reported on this last week, we were talking about all the different sources. Some of them were several years old. Some were really current. Some of these are brand new. And what's happening is an attacker or a hacker, whatever, is collecting the data, putting it together into this big archive, and posting it on mega links.
Nice.
And the mega service, most of it is not indexed by Google, so you have to kind of know the link to get there. But once people find it, they then have access to this treasure trove of data, and 4 more collections have been released that way. They say they've identified who the hacker is, but it's really, they put a fake name on it. It's a hacker going by the moniker of Corpse, C-O-R-P-Z. Which I don't know if that's supposed to be like corpse dead body or corpse corporation. Hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
but they don't actually know who it is.
So what kind of information was it that was leaked?
Most of it is user credentials. It's username, password. Some of it's encrypted. A lot of it's decrypted. Some of it, they did rainbow tables against it to dehash the passwords. There is other, just personally identifiable information, and it's from a number of different sources, so the information varies widely.
So I just checked all my email addresses on haveibeenpwned.com, and I am in the clear.
No way.
Yeah.
How are you in the clear?
Because, Don, I care about security.
Well, so about, I don't know, 8 years ago, there was the big Adobe breach, and everybody's in the Adobe breach. Did you not use Adobe products 8 years ago?
Not officially.
Oh, all right. So, this is another morality story here, right? If you're a paying customer, you get screwed.
Exactly. That's why you got to know better than that. No, I was a student 8 years ago of life. Is the justification that I would use.
I had to check now because I know there's this one particular email address that I have that I've had since high school. 10 breach types for this email. This is my spam email, the one that you always give to people.
Yeah. That'll come out in leak 6.
I have email addresses. I have my Hotmail address that I got the year the Hotmail company launched.
Yeah, this one is MSN.
So yeah. That's pretty old.
Yeah.
I wonder if my CompuServe has been hacked.
And those, it's practically a guarantee. It's not even worth searching on the list anymore.
Yeah, I knew. That's why I was like, I wonder how many times, because it's inevitable at this point.
It's a sad state of affairs. But yeah, so anyhow, data hoarders releasing even more information. So it's, we did already report on it once, but it's worth reporting again. These are massive collections of data. They list on ZDNet the sizes of these. The first one that was released was 87 gigs of data. The follow-ups, we've got 528 gigs in collection 2, 37 gigs in collection 3, 178 gigs. We're creeping up on a terabyte of breach data here, all collected together into one piece, in one place. So if you haven't changed your passwords yet, now is a great time to get in there and do it.
And by the way, my other best practice is I always use someone else's credit card when I shop at Target.
That's
so I've never had my data stolen.
I just don't shop at Target.
That'll do it too.
I go in for like one item and come out with $200 worth of items.
I did see
I can't deal with that.
a Bird Box meme with with the kids all with the
I
blindfolds
saw
of them
that.
saying,
It's like,
"No,
yeah.
we're just here for toilet paper at Target."
Go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Save yourself.
Yeah, they have toilet paper lots of places.
Yeah.
Like Amazon, you can expand your carbon footprint by having them drive a truck all the way to your house just for your toilet paper.
I like
Options.
As long as you don't need the toilet paper in less than 2
it.
days.
Full disclosure, I just had toilet paper delivered the other day. I really did.
All right, let's look over at another article that relates back to something we talked about last week with the Apple FaceTime bug or opportunity, depending on if you're a hacker or a user. So Apple iOS 12.1.4 release has a nasty surprise. So is this a release that's supposed to fix the issue, and it has its own surprise?
So this article comes from Forbes, and they do a segment. It's called, what is it called? Great Secret Features and Nasty Surprises. That's the name of the article. So it's sensationalized quite a bit. Apple had promised to have an update out last week to fix the FaceTime bug that we reported on, and they didn't. The fix did come out this week, though, so that's one of our nasty surprises that it came out late. The other thing is that they've announced that they're not able to go back and fix previous versions of iOS. We knew that. That's why they shut off the FaceTime group calling. Well, they've now announced that this fix has come out, and if you don't upgrade, that's it. You get no group calling for FaceTime anymore. So that's really, well.
I've never group called on FaceTime.
It's a fairly new feature. I think most people haven't, but the fact that it's there, as people learn about it, they want to use it. It's something they pay for when they buy the service, so you might as well take advantage of it. But the interesting thing here is that this update, we've seen Apple has gotten really kind of unstable with their updates, and I know you, Peter, you are one of those people who does not update their laptop the moment an update comes out from Apple, because you've gotten burned on it too many times, right?
Yeah, because I want to use my second monitor. That was the big one for the longest time, and so I didn't update. And then I think the next one, did we determine if that works in the, what do we got now? High Sierra? No.
Oh yeah, I knew the display link drivers were a problem, and they finally fixed them under Mojave.
Because I want dark mode.
But then the next update will come out and it'll probably break it again. So people have started to learn, don't update when Apple tells you to update. And here they're saying you either update or you lose this feature. The feature is gone to you now. So that's a big deal for people who may have been using that.
It's a big dilemma for middle schoolers.
I was just about to say, this really brings me back to like three-way calling on a landline, and I learned my lesson then. So why even?
Now I want to know, what was that lesson exactly?
When they say they hang up, they're not hanging up.
Exactly.
The only time I've done a group FaceTime is with my daughter. She wanted to see how many people she could get in it, so she just went down every contact. So I was in a group FaceTime with my nieces, and then like half of Abby's class, and I'm just like, okay, I'm leaving this now. I don't know why I'm here.
How did it perform? Did it work well?
Performed great. Yeah.
How many people do you think were in there?
There was a point where there were like 17.
Wow.
I think, is what we were up to, but not everyone was answering. Smart. But now they don't have to. We can just add them anyway if they haven't updated. And you had an interesting bug you were talking about that I hadn't heard about as well. This is an Apple device as well?
Yeah.
What was that?
I missed a call from a number that I didn't know, and then as soon as the call stopped ringing, I got a notification, a reminder to call them back. So it was like a spam reminder. And I looked on Apple's site, and they basically said you just move the notification, you create a temporary calendar, move it over, delete it from there to delete them. I'm like,
that's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
No.
So look for that fix in 12.1.15 coming soon to an unstable phone near you.
With dark mode.
Yeah, but still better than the Pixel. All right, let's move over now to, let's see, we're on brew.sh. SH.
What is Homebrew?
I don't know what country that is. And a good question about Homebrew. So this is one of those news articles that is important to me, but maybe not important to everybody. If you've watched any of my Mac shows, then you'll know that Apple has been slowly killing off the macOS server app. It's been kind of dwindling each iteration and getting less and less functionality. So we're kind of in a place where now if you run a Mac server, you have to install software from somewhere else. And the number one go-to place to get software for Macs right now, after the Apple Store, is the Homebrew app. So if you install the Homebrew app, you can quickly install any of a number of GNU utilities. If you want to install MySQL or bring up an Apache web server, Nginx, it's super easy using Brew. It's really hard using any other method. So for developers that work on Macs, Brew is an essential tool. And even just for regular people, if you want to quickly install apps, Brew really helps. Well, Brew 2.0 came out, and I've used it on Macs for years. I use it in our shows. It's an important part of my workflow. And so when 2.0 was announced, I said, well, I wonder what's new. And I was really surprised to see the big thing that's new in Brew 2.0, which is Windows and Linux support. That you can now run Homebrew under Linux to install apps the same way, as well as Windows. So they're really branching out there, which is cool. This has been a really big part of working on a Mac for a long time. It hasn't been a big part of the Linux world, where you've already got repositories available that you can get apps from, and they're pretty full. But in the Windows world, there hasn't been a great way to do it. And there was the Chocolatey software manager came out for a while, and then Microsoft rolled theirs out. The name is eluding me. Do you remember it, Cherokee? From PowerShell, you can install third-party apps.
I don't know.
I don't feel bad. I can't remember it either, which shows how amazingly successful it was. It was one of the big launch features of Windows 10 was that they had this command line interface you could install third-party software from. So in that world, it keeps changing year after year, and it looks like Homebrew is slowly winning out as becoming the best way to manage installing software from the command line.
Well, I don't care about Homebrew, so I spent the time looking up the SH domain. So I'll give a little trivia to all of you. It is the top-level domain for St. Helena, Ascension, and Tristan da Cunha, British overseas territories that are off the west coast of Africa. But the interesting thing is it's also noted here that SH, where's the German one? There's a German province as well that uses it. Yes. It's the official abbreviation for the German federal state of Schleswig-Holstein. And so they'll use that as well for like their public transportation site. It's at nah.sh.
Well, I'm sure the Homebrew project uses it because when you write bash shells, bash scripts, you'll end them in .sh. So that's probably why they picked it. But yeah, I had no idea. Country codes, there are so many crazy countries that are out there. And well, I mean, like we use .tv for some of our stuff, and that's Tuvalu, right? A country whose primary export right now is the .tv domains.
Yeah, they're like, all right, we hit the lottery. They're probably countries changing their names now to figure out ways that they would get a good top-level domain. All right, let's switch over now to Naked Security by Sophos. We've got an article about Microsoft Azure data deleted because of a DNS outage. So you put your stuff in the cloud, assuming that it is safe there, but are we wrong, Don?
You're wrong. You're very, very wrong. So this incident happened last week, or actually just a couple of days ago, and it really highlighted one of the issues that you can run into with automation and relying on cloud services. Now, the important thing here, and what's not in the headline, is yes, data was deleted and lost out of Azure, but it was recovered very, very quickly, and they had 5-minute backups on this data. So it was less than 5 minutes of data that was actually lost. That doesn't excuse it, but like they had plans in place to recover from this. But basically what happened is in Azure, they have a service called Transparent Data Encryption, TDE, and it allows you to create databases and apply encryption, but your clients don't have to worry about it. The encryption is all handled by the database itself. So that's why they call it transparent. And it relies on private keys that it locates through doing lookups through DNS. And there was a DNS failure and this I thought was really weird, was that Azure was leveraging an external DNS provider, not one of their own. Maybe they do that for redundancy. I'm not sure. It seems like they'd want to use their own DNS system.
CenturyLink.
Oh, it was CenturyLink. Mm-hmm. All right, well, at least it's somebody big. But for some reason, their connection to CenturyLink or the CenturyLink DNS server failed. Something caused them not to be able to do the lookup. So when the TDE processes did a lookup to find the key, they couldn't find the key, so they assumed the key was deleted. And if you have encrypted data with no key, it's useless. And so Microsoft has cleanup tasks that say once the key is gone, we blow away the databases because we don't need them anymore because we can't decrypt them so they can't be used. And so that's exactly what happened. They had automated scripts that wiped out live production customer databases and knocked it out. And once they found out what happened, they were able to fail DNS back over to their own DNS servers. And then once that was done, they restored the deleted databases off of those 5-minute backups that I mentioned, and everything came back up. But it was a pretty decent-sized outage, and it kind of highlighted the fact that when you're dealing with the cloud, a lot of the complex pieces behind the scenes are hidden from you. You know, you don't have to worry about them. But that doesn't mean they can't go wrong and they can't fail. Like, you can't trust the cloud to be this perfect solution all the time.
So maybe they would want to go ahead and revisit that policy for the encryption there, because I know, like with certain other clustering, for instance, I feel like like when it initially was being used, and they would go ahead and evict a particular node due to lack of heartbeat responses or something, they started to make allowances for that so that it gives some time. So not to be so aggressive with removing a system or service if someone was still depending on it.
Yeah, I see this with automated failover a lot. Like when you have a disaster recovery site, you might have a little blip on the radar, and that doesn't necessarily mean you want to fail over to DR, because it's a pain in the butt to fail back and get it back into your regular production environment. So it'd be better to just say, look, I can handle the 10 seconds of downtime or whatever. That doesn't need to trigger a failover. So that's a pretty complex thing, because there's not a like one solution fits every situation. So it just has to be evaluated. In this case, Microsoft has obviously addressed the issue and worked through it. But it should send a message to everybody, not just about Azure, but about AWS, about Google Compute, that all of them are really marrying tons and tons of different technologies behind the scenes. And any one of them can lead to cascading failures. So having some kind of redundancy set up either between cloud providers or between you and on-prem can really be a benefit, especially in scenarios like these.
Which is why I write down all my encryption keys on Post-its and put them next to my passwords.
Yeah, DNS failure isn't going to affect that, is it?
Yeah, nope. I'm set. All right, let's switch over now to Rapid7's blog, Understanding Ubiquity Discovery Service Exposures. That's always been a problem for me, understanding those. So, Don, maybe...
exposures in general, or just Ubiquity
No, this
exposure?
one...
Sure.
So a couple of days ago, here on January 29th, there we go. So actually, that's 9 days ago. There was a flaw announced on Ubiquity routers. And Ubiquity is a company, I think they're based out of Texas. They make really corporate or enterprise-grade routers and switches and a lot of wireless, but it's all inexpensive. So they try and address that market where they give you really good hardware, but at a lower price. No, I sound like a commercial. But anyhow, they had a flaw in their router software where an attacker could basically do a reflection attack, where they could send a small amount of data and the router would reply back with a large amount of data. Now, an exploit hasn't actually been written yet, so this was a proof of concept. The vulnerability was discovered, and Ubiquity has since pushed out an update to be able to fix that. And honestly, it's something you can block on a firewall anyway, so this isn't really an issue if you've got the proper protection in place. But because Ubiquity equipment is low cost, there's a lot of small and medium businesses that use it, and they don't properly configure it. And so that means they're vulnerable. And so what Rapid7 did is they did a big write-up on exactly how the vulnerability works. And I thought that was really interesting, because a lot of times we learn about a vulnerability like, hey, here's this attack that's coming in on port 10,001. You need to block port 10,001. Okay, we can do that, but how did it work? How did it actually do what it said it did? And the Rapid7 write-up, like I said, if you get a chance, take the time to read it, because it explains exactly how this attack works. And they even did a Shodan search to be able to try and find how many Ubiquity routers were out there that could potentially be exploited. And they found over 500,000 devices that were out there like that. We actually have a Ubiquity router here in the building. And I took a look at it to make sure that it wasn't affected. And it was interesting because Ubiquity routers, they treat all their interfaces equally. They don't say, like, this is an internet interface, this is a LAN interface. They treat them all the same, which is how a router should be. And if you don't pay attention, it's providing access to its administrative interface on all of the interfaces. So an outside person, somebody on the internet, could browse to the login screen on your Ubiquity router, and if you haven't changed the password, they could log in and reconfigure it. You have to create a firewall rule inside of the router that blocks that access. And if you don't do it, you're vulnerable. And so there are a ton of routers out there right now that are vulnerable to this attack. It's only a matter of time before somebody actually writes an exploit to take advantage of this. So if you're using Ubiquity routers in production, you ultimately should apply the ubiquity update. But if you're hesitant to do that, at a minimum, you need to create a firewall rule on the router blocking access to the admin interface of that router, or at least TCP port 10,001, or I'm sorry, UDP port 10,001 to stop that traffic from getting in.
Do we need to do a timeout while you patch ours, or?
Oh, we're good.
We're patched.
Yep.
Okay.
But, we actually weren't vulnerable in the beginning anyway. One, because it's a secondary router, but also because we had that rule in place blocking that traffic. Because we think about that stuff. We as an IT company, we think about security more, right? But imagine you're a donut shop or a dentist office. You get the router, you pop it in, it works. You don't think about that stuff, and that's where you're going to see the most.
You probably didn't change the default password either.
Not if it worked.
Yeah,
right. If you plug it in and it works, then that's it.
We're set. Yeah. All right, let's move over now to CNBC, not something we typically look at, but they've got an interesting story here on Slack. Slack is setting itself up for the $3.5 trillion healthcare sector. So basically, it looks like the big move here is that they added HIPAA compliance.
Yeah, so Slack allows you to easily collaborate. You can exchange information very quickly. I mean,
these commercials are great, Tom, that you're doing today.
I'm in commercial mode today. Honestly, we should get paid for some of this stuff.
If I act now, do I get 2 Slacks?
But really, all it is an IRC server that's been prettied up. At the end of the day, Slack really isn't all that impressive as far as hardware is concerned, or technology is concerned.
Oh, the ad's over.
I know. Now I'm trashing it. And just full disclosure, I absolutely detest Slack.
and also full disclosure, Slack is our inter-office communication. But if you want to talk to Don, you walk over to Don.
I do launch Slack at least once a day.
I can't even get it to launch. I can't get it to launch.
I'm doing better than her.
I know. So I'm going to just...
Aren't you in charge of this, Don? Why is that our
No, I shouldn't be
office?
in charge of that. No way.
But why is this our office?
We're slowly trying to migrate to
Teams.
Everybody else loves it.
There's just very low buy-in at this point in
GIF
time.
integration is second to none.
If you're going to show some GIFs.
Does Teams have GIF support?
I'm sure it does.
Oh, well, then I'm fine. Okay.
Although, actually, I put that animated GIF of Nate in there, and it didn't animate.
Oh, okay. I really haven't tried.
Yep, maybe
Take
not.
a screenshot of the animated GIF.
I'm just trying to get more buy-in.
So
anyway,
using ITProTV as an example, though, the majority of the employees here love Slack. They use it all the time. But Slack has had a bit of a sordid history. Do you guys remember probably about 5 years ago, they got breached? And it was like a super breach. Everything, usernames, passwords.
It was really early on for them.
Everything. It was a full mega breach of Slack. Obviously, they recovered because they're doing great. They're raising tons of money. And so now they're looking for more markets to be able to reach into. And they're looking at healthcare. And immediately for me, big red flag pops up is you're going to talk about patients. You got medical records and data. And here's a company that had a mega super breach just a few years ago. And now you're going to stick medical data in there. Also with Slack, they have some really weird rules in there. Like I don't think I'm an administrator on our Slack account, but if I was, let's pretend for a moment that I am. If I'm an administrator on my Slack account and Peter, you send a private message to Cherokee, there's no way for me to see that.
God.
That even administrators don't have access to the data.
I was like, everybody's reading all these messages.
So with Slack, you don't. No, I'm not lying. Like you literally don't have a way to be able to pull that up. Mm-hmm. So how are you supposed to show that you have control over patient data when you can't even show that you have access to all the data in the first place? Like, it just seems really weird. But they say they're working on becoming HIPAA compliant. And it says right now that Slack is only HIPAA compliant for file uploads and not yet for direct messaging, which I imagine is a reference to exactly what I was just talking about. So I see this as a recipe for disaster. I can't imagine hospitals will jump on this, but hey, if there's $3.5 trillion being invested in health IT, then it might behoove the Slack engineers to kind of retool the product and make it work a little bit differently to meet those needs.
Have we considered tweaking ITProTV to be healthcare focused? I mean, $3.5
trillion
on the
table.
Let's
get
in on
training
this.
Garbage. And
All right. This is a fun story next from Gizmodo.com. Cops insist that Waze users stop snitching on DWI checkpoints. I know Cherokee has some hot takes on this one, but Don,
we all know how we feel about snitches.
Yeah. I believe the article references that as well. But I guess Moto always has a fun take on these stories. But so basically, for those that aren't aware, in Waze, you can alert other users when you see a cop, that's at a speed trap or something like that. And so obviously, checkpoints are a big thing that people would report as well. How is this any different than calling your friends and saying, "Hey, there's a checkpoint at such and such"? 'Cause I remember people used to do that.
I don't have a network of friends that large. I mean, maybe that would be the take on it because...
And they're too drunk to answer the phone. Anyway,
yeah, that's it. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess it's the reach, right? If one person posts something on Waze, then it is seen by thousands, tens of thousands of other people versus, if you're calling your drunk friends. So there's that. They have been doing this for a long time. Like Waze has done it for a long time. So I was really curious about why this is all of a sudden a news item. Like why did the NYPD just now reach out and ask them to stop? And I have a theory on this. I have no factual evidence to back this up.
Perfect.
But just last week, Google announced that they were going to start introducing speed limit reporting as well as other user-posted alerts inside of Google Maps. And so now some of this data is making the leap, because Google owns Waze, so some of the data is making the leap from Waze into Google Maps. I wonder if maybe the NYPD is more concerned that this data is now going to be in an app that has even greater reach, because Google Maps is installed by default on any Android phone. Well, if it's part of the Google environment. Versus Waze that you have to actively go and install. So maybe this does
so
come
now
down
I'm going to have to go buy a jammer.
A jammer?
What do they have, right? Those little radar detectors?
Oh, yeah.
I guess is it a jammer?
I think a jammer is illegal. A detector
Well,
is
I was
legal.
going to say, I don't know. I've never had one. So
I used to have radar detectors like in high school, and those are legal. But
radar detectors are legal here in Florida, but not like,
in every
I think
state.
is it South Carolina where they're illegal?
I'm not sure. But I know. I remember hearing, if you go across state lines.
Plus, I've also heard that if you get pulled over for some other infraction and they see that, then you're more likely to get
it's probably
the
not
book
appreciated.
thrown at you. Yeah,
it's probably not appreciated. But this makes me think about there was the law in Florida recently. You know how if you passed a cop doing a speed trap, you would flash your lights then at other people coming the other way to let them know to slow down. That was illegal for the longest time in Florida. Illegal because they would say,
that.
"Oh yeah, everyone did," because they were saying that the way it was written on the books was like you were impersonating a police officer by having flashing lights. And so that's how that. And so
that's pretty lame.
Someone finally challenged. I think it was the Morgan and Morgan people challenged it finally and
for
said,
them.
For the people.
"Hey,
we are for the people.
if you're going to make up this law to stop this, at least say what you're actually doing." And so that the law was taken off the books.
Seems like it would be aiding and abetting, right?
Yeah, it would
known-
be more under that.
I don't know that person is a known criminal.
You're not helping somebody commit a crime. You're helping somebody uncommit a crime, right? Like, slow down.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, the
That's a good
speeding,
deed, right?
Yeah, I'm helping. At the end of the day, the point of all this is to stop people from speeding. It's not to make revenue. Yeah, if there's a city that's relying on speeding ticket revenue for their budget, then
which that has happened before.
Yeah. Waldo,
Yeah,
right up the road
exactly.
here. Yeah, we had a big speed trap that what turned out to be a extremely corrupt.
Yeah, they got in
city
trouble
as
for
well.
having ticket quotas.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, you thought that story was ridiculous. The next one is a little bit crazy. It's sad as well, but it also points to a much bigger issue. This one is on the Fair and Balanced FoxNews.com. Be sure to check that out. Death, dogs, and a missing $190 million. The strange case of a crypto exchange.
How did the dogs?
Oh, God. How am I supposed to say that name? Quadriga CX?
It's Quadria.
Yeah, let's go with that. But so the big thing that drew me to this story too, and Don, you found this as well, is that the head of this cryptocurrency exchange passed away back in December in India. Young guy, 30 years old, but he was the only one with the password controlling $190 million of cryptocurrency, and they've been trying to brute force their way in. And
I have so many other questions.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, like
you want to know about the dogs.
I want to know how the dogs fit in. I want to know, did he know he was going to die? And I want to.
It was complications from Crohn's disease, so he was not
in the best of health. So he should have had a contingency plan
on a Post-it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right down.
So he had Crohn's disease, which is it's It's a
Gastro.
terrible thing, and they have various surgeries to try to fix it, but there is no cure, at least not that I'm aware of. So he did know that his life was not guaranteed. So he had a will, and in his will, this is where the dogs come in. He had set aside, here we go, $100,000 for his 2 pet chihuahuas.
Oh my god!
So he was thinking far ahead enough to protect his chihuahuas, but not far enough to say, I'm the only one that has this private key, and I'm not going to tell anyone.
Well, does he have family? Because I would be afraid if I was his family at that point. I mean, if you have people who are dealing in Bitcoin, some of them aren't always the stand-up kind of individuals, and now you've basically stolen their money.
Well, if we go a step further, though, it is just Bitcoin, so it's not real money anyway. So,
Well, hold on, I think I've cracked this. So remember in Men in Black, they said the secret is in Orion's belt, and it was the cat's
So
collar.
in the Chihuahua,
Do the
encryption
Chihuahuas
key.
hold the key?
maybe.
You're on to something.
And, honestly, the private keys that you use to, seal a wallet, most of them are pretty long, and it's not something you memorize in your head. Also, I guess it was his business. So if it was his business, maybe he would.
It's got to be somewhere then. Yeah, you got to put that somewhere. But this makes me think, reminds me back when Bitcoin surged really high, when it was over, $10,000, $15,000, something like that. We had a revelation on this very podcast that Don has Bitcoin, that he has no idea what the password is to the wallet anymore, and made me think about how much money is out there that people might have just forgotten and
Or just lost the
can't
password.
access
I mean,
it.
like
Exactly.
people
It's
forget
gone.
and lose passwords all the time, so it's totally.
And that really upset me, Don. Like after hearing that, I was like, but there's all that money. And I was like thinking, well, how do we find this? But then Bitcoin tanked, and so I
didn't care
really
anymore.
wasn't an issue anymore. But
Yeah, because at the time, I intentionally have thrown away at least 2 Bitcoin over the years. And at its peak, I mean, that was worth almost $40,000. That's a lot of money, which I just threw away. But it had no value then. It really has no value now, but we pretend it does. So thing about Bitcoin, though, is that once a coin is burned, like once it's lost, it's gone forever. You can't bring it back into circulation. It's like if you take a quarter and you melt it, then that's it. It's gone. You can't get that quarter back. But in Bitcoin, a lot of people think, hey, it's just a digital number. Can't we just type the number again? It's right there in the ledger. But no, it has that documented trail of where it's gone, and once it's stuck in a place, it's just stuck there forever. So,
and there's no governing body to appeal to say, hey, I lost my password. Can you help me out? Like you could at the bank or something.
No, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And actually, I wonder if I can find it here. There's a website that's doing a countdown to the last Bitcoin. That there is a finite amount of Bitcoin.
Oh, so they're based on the rate that they're being found, they're calculating this?
Yeah, and at some point they will find the last one, and I'm not.
Yeah,
finding
that
it.
would be interesting to know.
Countdown to when Don finds the website as well.
My Google
10.
foo is weak on this one.
9. I'd go to Bing.
Yeah, this
8.
is the Bitcoin halving countdown. That's not the same, but
Okay, never mind.
yeah. So there are 17.5 million Bitcoins in circulation right now, and the total is 21 million. So there's only 3.5 million more Bitcoin to be minted, and then once that's it. There can't be any more Bitcoins unless they fork into some new currency.
Now, do you think that at that point we're going to see a drop in malware and things where people like, well, I don't need to take over all these armies of computers anymore? I mean, there are other cryptocurrencies out there as well, obviously, that people will be mining for.
When the last Bitcoin is mined, then there won't be any point in mining it anymore. But it's going to take a long time for that to happen because that website that I found unintentionally, the Bitcoin halving, which I'm saying terribly because I don't pronounce things well, but HALVING, halving,
okay.
Cutting in half. The way that it works is every couple of years, and the next one's going to happen in about a year and a half, they basically cut the reward from mining a Bitcoin in half. So it becomes 50% less profitable to mine every 2 years. And what happens is that slows down mining. People aren't going to invest money in it like they have been, and it gets slower and slower. So it'll take a long time to finally reach that last bit. But once it does, that's it. There's not going to be any more
So are we going to see eBay being flooded with like GPUs and all this extra hardware? You think?
That's kind of already happening right now.
Well, the people don't own the GPUs. They're using other
for that. But yeah,
malware.
I mean, there probably are some legitimate people who have their own farms.
So NVIDIA just reported a huge earnings report where it wasn't huge. They were missing all of their earnings marks, and a lot of it was because of reduced demand for Bitcoin, and their stock has tumbled from that. AMD has seen a little bit, but NVIDIA was affected the most, and so that's already happening. Yeah.
Interesting. It's fun to think about the unintended
trickle
consequences
effects
of these things.
Bitcoin, yeah.
But the point that we want to double back to here is that this guy just basically took $190 million to the grave. So when they say that you can't take it with you, he certainly did.
Yeah, and I mean, they're trying. They're trying to figure it out. But I mean, imagine if you're an investor in this. I mean, it wasn't his $190 million. It was their investors' money. So
yeah.
So
I wonder
if you're
the Chihuahuas
investing,
will be okay.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. They need protection.
He's got $100,000.
Are they going to take that money though? Like, will the Chihuahuas get?
They need security guards.
Protected or not?
Yeah.
It's the company. I mean, it's the difference between the company and the personal estate.
I don't know. Chihuahuas are like rats with bug eyes.
Okay.
I have a Chihuahua, and he's morbidly obese.
Oh, nice.
He doesn't even look like a Chihuahua.
So a morbidly obese rat with bug eyes.
Never seen a fat Chihuahua. I kind of want to Google that, but I know the potential things that could come up if you search for fat Chihuahua.
Next week on Technado. Hey, but we're not done. We're done with the news segment, but we actually do have a great interview with Christiaan Brinkhoff, who is a Microsoft MVP. He also has his own consulting company and works at FSLogix. And as Cherokee has uncovered, he has many things that he does.
I think only like 5 people in the world have the collection of accolades or awards that he has. So that's like really impressive.
Well, let's get into that and take a look at that. But we're going to do that right after this on Technado, so stay tuned.
Enjoying Technado? Then be sure to check out Ignite, another podcast from the Pro TV network. Ignite highlights stories of leadership as host Vicky Guy interviews a new business person each week. Learn more at itpro.tv/podcasts.
All right, welcome back to Technado, and as promised, we've got a great interview for you here. I think we're kind of becoming the place now where Microsoft MVPs know that you want to come. The Technado is the place where everyone wants to get the word out. So we've got a great one all the way from the Netherlands. Christiaan Brinkhoff is joining us. Christiaan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, definitely. So can you just let the viewers and listeners know a little bit about yourself, what it is you do now?
Yeah, so I'm Christiaan Brinkhoff, and I'm currently working as a cloud architect and technology evangelist for a company called FSLogix, which is previously 3 months ago acquired by Microsoft. So that is what I mainly do. And besides that, I'm also an owner of my own company, which is called ChristiaanBrinkhoff.com IT Consulting, where I do some side stuff as well, designing reviews, anything which is like particular to cloud computing. So, yeah.
Great. So I know the Microsoft MVP program is not Microsoft employees. It's people that are heavy users and evangelists in the space. But wait, are you technically a Microsoft employee now with the acquisition?
No.
Okay.
No. So before the acquisition, I was a contractor for FSLogix, and that's still the thing. So that makes it possible to still be active in that MVP program. So I'm still working as part of my own company for technically Microsoft, but under the same company called FSLogix. So that's still the same construction, let's say it like that. So
gotcha.
Yeah, that makes it easier. Yeah,
makes sense. So for those that aren't familiar with the MVP program, can you tell us a little bit about what's involved with that and how you became a part of it?
Yeah, so the MVP program is the Microsoft Valuable Professional Program, which can be achieved by people in the community to do good stuff for Microsoft, which is like acknowledged by Microsoft. And in giving that award as part of that contributions, which can be presentations on local user groups, vendors, or conferences, or just blog posts, or webcasts like this, or podcasts without video. So that can be like the goal to achieve that. But for me, it was never like a goal. It was more like accomplishment that I gave after I started blogging like 3 years ago, and I'm like a colleague in the MVP community named me or like nominated me as an MVP, and that eventually made me like the MVP. So it was like never a goal, but after becoming an MVP, it was like a roller coaster, and it gave me a lot of good opportunities in my personal and business life as well. So
yeah, and I
great
know
to be part of it.
Yeah, and I know Cherokee took a lot of notes and went back through your entire history. But you were saying Cherokee, he's also got
Yeah,
some elite certification there.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but maybe like comparable accolades to an MVP would be also from other vendors, Citrix for a CTP for your
Exactly.
Citrix, technology professional, as well as a VMware a V expert. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, how do you find the time?
I
It's
don't
our
know.
question. Yeah.
And I see
That's the most obvious question that I get as well. But making like combinations between different solutions can make it possible to do things together and combine presentations, for example, that are based on different technologies, and that makes it possible to do all the things together and combine them. So you need to be like a little bit smart with your free time to do that all side by side. Yeah, that's true.
So I think being smart with your free time is you're being humble here. That's a bit of an understatement because I looked at your accomplishments in 2018 and then your roadmap for 2019. And seriously, by the time I was done reading that list, I was exhausted just from reading that. So that's really impressive. And I mean, not only that, but you state that you had a newborn in 2018. So
Exactly.
that's a lot going
I have,
on.
yeah, that's definitely true. And I have a lovely wife that supports me in everything that I do. And like a big benefit of that community work that I do makes it like for me possible to have my wife only working for 1 day in a week, so she can mainly take care of the child right now. So that's like that part of doing smart things with free time as well, with like the balance with my personal life. So yeah, it's busy, but I like what I do. I'm very passionate about like innovation and cloud computing, and yeah, that makes it like not never like the feeling that I'm actually working. So that makes me like I go through barriers that probably other people will stop because it consumes too much time or it's too intense in kind of energy. So yeah, that definitely helps with that kind of work to achieve that.
So you mentioned cloud computing. Is that kind of where you focus most of your stuff right now?
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little
yeah,
bit about the projects you're working on?
yeah, exactly. So I worked like 8 years ago for companies that are mainly focused on desktop virtualization, and that was and is still are my main focus. But like 3-4 years ago, when Microsoft Azure evolved in the big cloud platform what it is right now, I started mainly focusing on desktop virtualization based on public clouds. So that made me like now in a Microsoft Azure MVP, and all the other accolades are focused on cloud computing as well. And combining that technology with all those solutions makes it what I am right now in terms of all the accolades. And the projects that I'm currently working on are all focused on cloud as well. So that it's mostly focused on desktop as a service, which is like the platform as a service version of previous on-premises desktop virtualization technologies such as Citrix or RDS, for example. So that's like the transition that we are in right now. It's moving away from that on-premise perpetual licensing desktop virtualizations environment that is all managed by their own IT department, own responsibilities, moving over, transitioning to a cloud platform control plane offering that is based on technologies that are similar to the on-premises version, but now in a managed version. So the vendor is taking care of that control plane instead of you doing it yourself in your IT department. So yeah.
like you said, we are in this crazy transformation period right now, and just trying to keep up with all the different products. I know Microsoft originally, like in 2017, had launched their RDMI for the remote desktop modern infrastructure, and then we saw that kind of shift towards more of the, Windows as a service. And I personally find it difficult sometimes just to retrain my brain from that traditional on-premises infrastructure thinking, and I have to think kind of outside the box. And I found a quote on your blog, and it was really I resonated with it. It says, "The world is going through one of the most impressive digital workspace transitions right now." So for you to be doing what you do in this space and be consulting with individuals, helping them find a solution for their companies, how did you get started in that? It just seems kind of natural, but I'm kind of curious to see what made you, like you said, make that decision, hey, I'm going to go off onto my own and start this consulting business.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that you mentioned around RDMI is the involvement of that project to Windows Virtual Desktop, and that is announced during Ignite last year of the Microsoft conference. And the Windows Virtual Desktop is the new desktop offering from inside Azure, which is as well a platform as a service solution. So what is like game changing or different from an on-premises environment or RDS environment is like that control plane part that I mentioned before, that is like managed by Microsoft. You don't need to update your brokering servers or your web access, your web server login portal system, for example. And that is something that Microsoft never did before. And one thing that is interesting as well is like that acquisition that I'm part of FSLogix, which is like the products that will be mandatory available from inside that service as well. And when you talk about like what do I have to do, or what is like the transition for my company, I'm still using like, for example, on-premises services, and I want to move to the cloud. Then the big and important thing for your company is like, what are my applications right now? Do I have or do I need to launch applications on a platform, or do I use mostly SaaS applications, software as a service, for example? So that transition from Win32 apps, for example, to SaaS apps, modern apps, that is something that is very interesting to watch right now and to do as company. But as well, like the desktop virtualization part, that can be like achieving the same benefit as well as for your applications, but then on the desktop side. So you move over to Azure, for example, your control plane will be managed by the vendor, by Microsoft. So you only need to take care of your images and your applications based on that are installed based on that image as well. And the infrastructure side will be managed by the cloud as well as part of that infrastructure as a service environment that you use for deploying your services. So
great. And you also have a heavy focus on running, let's say, like Citrix on Azure as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Citrix is doing another great job in that control plane offering as well. So they have their own offering from inside Citrix Cloud, and Citrix Cloud is their control plane and other services option that you can use to overcome and to simplify the management layer of your desktop virtualization environment. So yeah, they're doing a similar job, and they as well have announced a product that is based on that Windows Virtual Desktop. So they extend that offering from Microsoft based on Azure on that Windows Virtual Desktop offering as part of a new DaaS offering that they will deliver mid 2019 or Q3 2019, something like that. So really interesting times to be active in the desktop virtualization space right now. And to see all those involvements, all those acquisitions, and all those movements, because we are now like part of like the transition phase that companies are deciding what their strategy will be in the next 5 to 10 years, for example. So that's like that. That describes a bit of that quote that you mentioned earlier, that we are part of that transition. So it's now that time that people or businesses are deciding or what their strategy will be, what their cloud platform will be, or what multi-cloud platforms they will be using in a hybrid manner as well for the next 5 to 10 years. So
Most definitely. I mean, if you're not going to go ahead and acknowledge and plan and start that now, you're going to become, your organization and even individuals just become irrelevant. So, and I'm sure anyone in tech knows, you get into this field, you're just going to continue to learn and evolve with everything. So you can,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, you need to educate yourself. You need to watch, every video, every demo, what you can watch to gain in knowledge, to make like decisions easier for you, to have like a broader view what the market is doing, because otherwise you will be running behind all the other people that do it. So yeah, that's definitely one tip for me to the people that watch this that podcast is like learn and do whatever you can to keep up with the technology and innovation around cloud and desktop virtualization. Yeah.
So, Christian, I know, I don't know if you know where Gainesville, Florida is. That's where we're located. But Ignite in Orlando is not very far. So I'm really excited to see that you're going to be speaking at Ignite for 2019. Do you already have a topic chose, or do you have something? Is it a secret or?
So I'm currently having like 3-4 presentations prepared, and my backup backup schedule to present on events like in Ignite. So it will probably be like something around Windows Virtual Desktop or all the other desktop as a service offerings that are available inside Azure, because my main focus is Azure, because I believe that Azure will be the platform to eventually launch your services, your platform services, because that's the most broadest platform that can deliver the most services that are available from the marketplace. So that will be definitely something that you can see from me on Ignite in 2019 this year. Yeah.
Do you do any of the Ignite tours over in Europe? I think we're going to, not us personally, unfortunately, but some of our team is going to the one over in London in a few weeks, and I think there's one in Amsterdam too.
Yeah, I was invited to speak on the one in Africa, in Johannesburg, but I unfortunately had another event that I had to do. So I'm probably lined up for Stockholm and maybe Dubai as well, but I'm still waiting for confirmation on that. Amsterdam, unfortunately, not, because on that week I'm at the MVP Summit in Seattle.
I was going to say that you don't go to the one that's just a train ride away. You think about Africa and the Middle East, but that's crazy. Hey, I want to ask a question about something you said a second ago. Normally, Don Bazette is involved in these podcasts, and I know this is the question that he would ask because we've talked about it a lot. So in Azure, I know that a lot of the machines now are running Linux, even more so than Windows, and so Don talks a lot about how that training is important now to make sure you're not just one-sided. But he has a prediction that there will be a Microsoft Linux distribution by the end of 2019, and I'm curious if you think he's right.
I don't know for sure. I mostly work on like Windows-based machines, but I know that Microsoft, since the replacement of Steve Ballmer by Satya Nadella, things that were not possible before that are now possible. So yeah, it could be possible that could happen. Yeah,
so not
they do a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, he hasn't totally debunked that.
Yeah, he's got, I don't know, he's got 9 or 10 months left or so to see. Yeah.
And if he loses, what is like the thing that
we never really discussed that, Peter.
Well, he made this prediction last year as well for 2018, and it didn't come true, and he just renewed it again. So I think he's just assuming that Microsoft's just running slow. So I'm sure he'll renew it in 2020 again. So.
Christian, so I was, before this interview, I had to do a little cyber stalking, and I was poking around your blog, and I came across something that I found really interesting. I think that our viewers would benefit from, and I wanted to ask you. You have a cheat sheet on your website, and I have it up on my screen here. I don't know if, but it's christianbrinkhoff.com, and I love cheat sheets. Like, I think they're amazing because you get a quick glance of important information, especially for comparisons like you've done right here, looking at the different workspace and desktop as a service models. Do you have anything in the works where, something that I think maybe our viewers would benefit from or appreciate?
This is like a very good starting point. So when you are in the discovering phase and what my desktop virtualization, desktop as a service offering or next step will be, this is a very good starting point for that. So there you can see like the main changes between those different solutions that are available in Azure right now. Next to that, I'm currently working on a new blog post that is covering Azure storage services in combination with desktop as a service solutions. So to like overcome and to replace the need for file services in Azure. So to use like the built-in services to eventually save money and to gain in like features, replication features and snapshot backups, every service that the storage accounts can deliver right now. And besides that, I'm also working on a book project right now, which is called the book project bitesize.com, where people from the community, so everywhere when you are like active in the cloud, computing community, MVP, or any other vendor right now, can contribute to that book. And we will publish the book in the next 120 days. To a physical book where we list all those quotes, recommendations, input from people inside the community, to an actual free physical book. So that's the next project that I'm working on, besides my bloggings and my presentation work, together with another well-known name in the desktop virtualization community, Bas van Kaam, which is also from the Netherlands. So yeah, quite amazing to see how many contributions we already received from the community right now. So it will probably be a 200 plus page book. So.
Wow. And we're talking with Christiaan Brinkhoff, and you can actually find a link to that book as well on the website, christiaanbrinkhoff.com. But I wanted to ask you about another thing on your site as well. In addition to the cheat sheets, you've got a couple of survival guides, Office 365 and Azure. So kind of what does that help people with?
Yeah, so as part of FSLogix, we deliver software products for desktop virtualization environments. So, and one of the main challenges that is active right now is using Office 365 products on top of desktop virtualization environments. And I wrote a survival guide on my blog, which covers almost all those challenges. So if you are running like a desktop virtualization environment and you are leveraging Office 365 services or plan to do that in the next like 12 months, then that survival guide will definitely help you to give guidance what to do when you implement this or that in your environment. So that is like the main purpose why I created that survival guides. And I have another survival guide that has like a top 10 cost savings in Azure to have like the best and the cheapest environment possible in Azure by using certain amount of services that are available in Azure here.
So this is normally the part of the show where I would ask you where people can find out more, but I know we've been talking about your site now. So that's over at christiaanbrinkhoff.com, and that's got the information about the book as well, where people can find that. Any other ways you'd like people to connect with you? Twitter, LinkedIn, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm as well very active on Twitter, where I share almost every like news article that I find interesting to share with my followers, and that can be found at Brinkhoff_C. So if you want to connect, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter as well.
Sounds good. We'll share the links for that, and I know. Well, we'll be at Ignite when it comes to Orlando again, and it's in Orlando again, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I know Cherokee will be first in line at your talk or four talks. If you...
I will. I'm usually like in all of my friends and people I know. I'm like in the front row, like clapping before they get started. I geek out. Yeah.
Distracting. You're distracting.
I'm distracting. Yeah.
Well, Christiaan, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time today. I know it's it's later in the day over there than it is here, so you're just wrapping up.
Yeah.
Well, you're not wrapping up. You probably got a couple talks tonight.
A few more
blog
hours,
posts to
yeah,
write
of work
and
at
things
least.
like that.
So
I need to pack my bags. I fly to Seattle tomorrow, so
Oh, fun.
that's what I need to do.
That's a short flight. Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yeah, it's only 11 hours. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with us today, and hopefully we can reconnect again in the future. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure. Let's
All
do that. So thank you for having me, and have a great show.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. But we've got more coming up, so stay tuned to Technado. All right, welcome back to Technado, and thank you so much, Christian, for joining us, and Don for giving up your seat to Cherokee and magically disappearing during that as well.
It was easy because I could sneak in and out during the wardrobe change.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, definitely. Because this all happens live very quickly. But in that break that you just saw, a little commercial, for those of you watching, we talked about our iOS app. There's actually a lot of updates to the ITProTV iOS app that I'd like to mention real quick. If you've ever used ITProTV on the desktop, you've seen where you can adjust the playback speed, so you can make Don sound drunk by slowing him way down, or speed him up and sound like he's on uppers. So, Chipmunk? Yeah, that's true as well. It doesn't really do like the high voice thing, but
No, they do pitch correction.
they do. Yeah, it does the pitch thing, brings it back down, but it does sound fun. So you can do that now in the iOS app. We've taken a look at any bugs and cleared those out as well, and we've got more clear icon choices and things like that. So definitely, if you are using the app on iOS, update it, and if you didn't know that was available, go ahead and check that out as well, because that is a great thing that you can use. Also want to let you know about a couple of things. First of all, we've got an offer over there at ITProTV, so if you don't know what I'm talking about and you want to sign up for ITProTV, head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado. We've got a link for a 7-day free trial, also a promo code if you do go ahead and sign up, as well as the ability to request a demo for your teams. And finally, want to let you know about some webinars coming up. We just had one last week that Don did about 5 common questions about starting an IT career. That's up in the archive now. So if you head over to itpro.tv/webinars, you can actually view all those old ones, the ones that we've done in the past. The next one coming up is actually on Valentine's Day. So if you're like me,
Looking for IT romance.
Yeah, you've got it. We've got Get Hired in IT, 5 hacks for your LinkedIn profile. Andrew Winchester, who is our career coach here, is going to be doing that one with Wes Bryant.
We should have named that one, Your Love Life is Failing, but Your Career Doesn't Have to Be.
Oh, man. Yeah. or your career
That's
is
great.
failing. Let's get it back on track.
Swipe right on a new job.
There you go,
That's
man.
really sad.
I want to write this stuff
Valentine's Day.
down.
Yeah.
That's
I know,
gold.
I'm like marketing gold today.
Yeah, I got to remember that. But hey, thank you guys so much today, and thanks, Cherokee, for popping in for not just the news, but for that interview. I know you're a Microsoft geek, so
Yeah.
I know you enjoyed that.
I did.
And she's going to be, like we said, first in line for all of those Ignite talks when it comes up in Orlando later this year. But thank you, all of you, for joining us as well, and we will see you next time right here on Technado.
Are you enjoying Technado? Then be sure to check out our other podcast, Ask Me Anything, where our subject matter experts answer your questions. Here's the latest episode, and here's the full playlist. And as always, be sure to subscribe to ITProTV's channel.
ITProTV.